Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Rocket Fund webinar. Today we have the Executive Director, Stephanie, from Caltech's Rocket Fund, and she's going to go over the fund and what it offers, equity-free grants to help early companies build commercial prototypes and demonstrations with customers. The awards are fast and flexible and provide the means for academic and garage innovators to validate their technologies in the real world and produce data that attracts customers and investors. We want to thank Stephanie. She has worked really closely with Blue Tech Valley and our partners, including CalSeed, and I'd like to give her the floor to explain a bit more. I also want to mention that if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please chat Blue Tech Valley and I will get those read aloud and Stephanie can answer. Thank you, Stephanie, and you can take it away.
Thank you, Courtney. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation to talk to you and to your companies today. And hello to all that are either in the room or online. Thank you for joining. So Courtney already summarized what the Rocket Fund is. We provide fast, flexible, non-equity grant funding. But the purpose of these and the goal is to help you create relationships with potential customers. And those are very hard to build when you're just starting out. Our mission is very ambitious. We've been very big thinking. We've brought together an elite group that knows that there really is no time to waste now in finding innovative solutions to sustainability. So we structured our Rocket Fund process to cast as wide a net as possible, to find the technologies that will have potential impact, and then to be as fast and flexible as possible in awarding the money to help young companies move them to commercialization. So, as Courtney mentioned, we help by providing money that will help you build your first commercial prototype that you can begin testing with your potential customer. For most customers, they find this an attractive proposition. They will get to see an innovative product at little cost to themselves. And with the Rocket Fund money and having that demonstration completed, you can then assemble the data that you need to validate your product and attract investment dollars to begin scaling up production. So we not only provide money, we also connect customers to our industry partners and to government sources of money, and above all to our utility partners through dedicated channel relationships. And I'll explain a bit more about how those work a little later. Here is a list of our current members. We were founded 5 years ago by a group called the Emerging Technology Coordinating Council, the Moxie Family Foundation in San Diego, and Caltech. But we've grown to include other industry members, and you can see them on the slide here. There's Itron, the Electric Power Research Institute are close partners of ours now, and we have channel relationships with the IN2 program that's run as a joint venture between NREL and Wells Fargo. And also not listed, we have partnerships with the Shell Game Changing program as well as the Made in America Solar program. The goal of the ETCC in founding the Rocket Fund was to identify new technologies and help them reach the grid marketplace. All of these members can offer connections to technical experts and other funding sources. And even we can help broker partnership opportunities in applying for rather large government grants. One of our awardees, SkyCool, was able to do this. They led, in fact, a grant application for a California Energy Commission grant and in partnership with EPRI, and they won. And it was a large $1.77 billion grant that certainly will help them get to the next stage. Not listed on this slide is a cluster of venture capitalists who have begun to track our companies with the view that although you may be a little bit too early at this point to receive funding, they will be there for you because they know you, they've seen your technologies, they've seen how you've developed it, they've seen how your team has grown. They'll be there to fund you at a later stage. So through long experience, we know that starting clean tech companies is really hard work, but keeping them going is even more demanding. This slideshow shows you the vital role that the Rocket Fund plays in helping companies through a very, very vulnerable point in their existence. So if you take a look on the left there, the phase of development, these are the funding stages that you need to go through in order to actually get to the point where you are self-sustaining and independent. So startup funding is relatively straightforward, still not easy, but you can certainly get some from friends and families, typically. Sometimes it's your own credit cards. There are increasing number of clean tech competitions, prize competitions, and very early grants. Not many, but there are a few. So if you're lucky, if you're very lucky, you can jump to the next stage where you have bridge funding. What that means is that you've been able to demonstrate your technology works. You have customers that are beginning to line up saying that they would like to buy it when it's fully developed. At that point, you are more attractive to the government commercialization programs that are out there, the innovation clusters, incubators. And at that point, utility demonstration programs will begin to kick in. From there, of course, once you get these customers lined up and you have early product sales, then you'll attract venture capital, you'll attract angel investors, and you begin to, of course, gain revenue from product sales, and your customers will be there to help support your company growth. The problem is that the support funding stage, the one here on called support funding to validate your prototype, that money often just is not there, and that is the point at which a lot of companies these days tend to stumble and fail. That is the amount of funding that we can provide that helps you turn these dotted arrows, which are problematic and uncertain, into solid arrows that will get you to the point of future stability. To date, we've hosted 5 funding cycles, and we've awarded not far off $1 million to 24 companies. Typically, we fund about 8 per funding cycle, so that's 8 companies a year. Our companies actually have raised more than $35 million in investment. In fact, our very latest surveys show that they've gone on to raise more than $44 million of investment funding. And altogether, in fact, they've attracted close to $80 million in a different variety of funding sources. So a combination of investment, government grants, and commercial sales and commercial service contracts. So let's deep dive into the funds process. Don't worry about taking notes. The session is being recorded, and the slides will be made available to all of you. And I also want to say that it is our policy to be open to advising any applicant who seeks information during the application process. I'm always available to answer any questions and give tips. So this list highlights the Rocket Fund's value to you. Now, the grants may appear small, but they fund items that other grant programs won't cover. And also, you can double and triple our money through our partnerships with the utilities, with EPRI, and our other channel partners that I mentioned earlier, such as the Wells Fargo program. And I can go into how these work in a little more detail during the Q&A. So a key thing to notice is that these are non-diluted. There's no IP ownership sharing here. The application process is fast. That is essential to you who often are in a point where every day, every week counts. We're also flexible. In that sense, we try to fit in with your strategic goals. Other grant programs, of course, set their own, but we're much more about supporting your future direction. And we work closely with our utility experts who understand the market, as well as where to find matching funds that can help maybe double and triple our money. This slide shows the items that we fund. So the initial prototype and product design, engineering and testing, equipment purchase, software development. Certification is interesting because that can be quite expensive. That can cost more than $100,000. It's something that companies in their early stages perhaps aren't aware of, and yet it's becoming essential to attract customer interest. And we can help cover those costs. And the consulting services are important. A lot of grant programs won't cover that. Increasingly, you're being asked to have a workable plan in your business model for scaling up a manufacturing, whether you do it yourself or you have it outsourced. And we can help pay for consulting services that will help you understand what that will look like. One last point I'll make is that typically we do look for companies that have a prototype design ready to go, and we're there to help build that prototype. But in the past couple of years, we've actually reached back a little bit earlier and provided money to help you in designing that prototype. As long as you have a plan for building and then demonstrating the prototype, and have a potential customer lined up willing to give you that demonstration site. As I mentioned earlier, we cover a broad scope of technologies, but they generally fall into two categories. There's the energy track that where we focused on utility priorities and the grid. And then on the other side, the sustainability side is much broader in what we cover. And I have to say that these are not restricted. These are just a sample list of the technologies that we look at. We consider almost anything and everything that has a validated technology base and that can be applied to clean tech and sustainability. And this year I want to mention that we'll be looking at, in particular, at agriculture and water and their impact on energy use and sustainability. The Resnick Sustainability Institute recently received a massive gift, actually, from Stuart and Linda Resnick to apply our best thinking to solving the research that underpins sustainability solutions in the future. And one of the major areas that we're going to be interested in is agriculture and water. Okay, the Rocket Fund process is fairly straightforward. It's 4 stages that I'll go into in a moment. As I mentioned earlier, the time frame is as fast as we can make it. It's typically from application to actually getting the money is about 6 months. It does operate like a grant. We'll be setting milestones that we agree upon against payments, but this payment schedule is negotiable. We will expect that your plan for applying the Rocket Fund money and building your prototype that will be then ready for testing with a customer will typically take no longer than 12 months. However, due to unforeseen circumstances, sometimes this is extended to as much as 2 years out. We can hold on to the money while you get ready and set up that demonstration site. Sometimes it depends on technology development. We get that. And you're certainly welcome to apply to the Rocket Fund more than once, just not in the same year. Okay. Stage 1, the application form. This is done online, and I've got a snapshot of, or a print screen, I should say, of what it looks like. It's fairly straightforward. You fill in these fields with information that is going to show us that you have third-party validated technology, you have a competitive value proposition, that you understand not just the market size, but your position within the marketplace at the moment and where you plan to be in maybe 3 to 5 years' time. You should tell us that you have a customer identified with a potential demonstration site. Now, we understand that often you're in negotiation. This may not be set at the point of application, but that's fine by us. As long as that's underway, then we can work with you during the application process. And there should be a staged use of funds. Our deadline this year is midnight, March 1st, 2020. Uh, one change this year that I should point out, uh, that we're going to be giving more weight to how you will assess your impact on either energy use or greenhouse gas emissions. And in particular, we're going to be looking for what metrics you are using to measure that yourselves, assuming that that is a strategic priority for you. Stage 2, the semifinal stage, once you're through the initial screening, which really focuses more on technology scope and readiness, you'll be asked to fill out a due diligence form that requires deeper answers to some of the questions that we asked on the application form. You can see that I've gone into it in a little bit more detail here. That we'll be looking at technology development. You should have some sense about the manufacturing process. We know that it's not finalized by any stretch of the imagination, but as long as we can see that you have done a thoughtful analysis of what this might look like, that you might have begun looking and talking to potential manufacturing partners, that will work for us. We need to see, I keep emphasizing this, that you've talked to and interacted with customers, and that from that interaction, you've been able to identify a path to commercialization and who might be the initial buyers of your product or technology. We do ask for some a summary of the business cost projections. We do ask for the competitive assessment. A lot of companies are a little bit, how shall I say, shy about talking about the competition out there. We work with a very good group of technical experts who really have a good view of the customer base that you're going to be addressing. So the important thing is for you to tell us how you are innovative, how you are different, and how you're going to establish your value proposition for your customer base. And I've already mentioned the impact metrics and how you're going to go about it will be important. One thing I should say, sorry, jump back. One thing I should point out is that we know that some of your answers are going to be estimations or projections, but as long as they are based on a solid business model and a commercialization pathway, we can take that into account. At this stage, we tend to focus on technology validation and a more realistic assessment, if you like, of your market and the commercialization pathway. At a later stage, we're going to focus on such themes as the team and also your implementation plan. Stage 3, this is the review panel and pitch day. You'll be asked to come to Caltech actually, where you'll be presenting in fact to our technology review panel, which consists of entrepreneurs, it consists of industry experts, there'll be some VCs there. And these are all people who are very, very familiar with the clean tech industry, as well as the sustainability world that you'll be addressing. At this stage, as I mentioned, what we look for is whether the business model and path to commercialization seems realistic. Is your story that you will tell us actually holding together? Whether the implementation plan is coherent, and whether there is a team in place that can execute. And perhaps of utmost importance is how you're going to use our money. We really need to see that it will have a profound impact on the progress of your company and help you get to sustainability. And we ask in this case that you stage your request in 3 tranches. And as I've said to many of our applicants, this does not prejudice what you're going to get. If we feel that our money is going to have the most impact by giving you $75,000, that's what you'll get. But we find, in fact, that for some companies, $25,000 really applied to just that to address the challenge that no other grant program or funding source will handle can make all the difference to you going forward. We do, as I mentioned earlier, want to see a manufacturing plan, some cost analysis of the eventual product, because we need to be convinced that you have a sense that you can sell the product at the right price to build a customer base. And don't forget, in your presentation to us, asking us how we can help. The utilities are there to do that, to provide connections to other programs within the utility networks, maybe connections to potential customers that can provide demonstration sites. We've done that in the past when the candidate was given an award, but their partner, their demonstration partner, fell through. We were able, through our connections, to find another, in fact, a better partner. In this case, it was Walmart, that was vital to the project going forward. Last stage involves negotiation reporting. Once you receive a grant, then we talk about and set up a memorandum of understanding. And this is not legally binding, but what it does is lay out the goals and milestones that you expect to achieve with our money, the time frame. We also will set the payment schedule. And I want to say that typically in the past, we've broken the payment up into tranches, but that's open to negotiation. Sometimes you need the money all up front, and we've certainly been open to that. And the reporting, we try to make as streamlined as possible. You'll fill out a quad report, which I'll show you in a moment, on a monthly basis. Along with that, there'll be teleconferences that we will organize, typically along with the quad report. And the purpose of these, the quad reports and teleconferences, is certainly to track your progress, but really more if things are beginning to go a little bit sideways or are taking a longer time than you originally thought, to see how we can help. We know that not everything is straightforward. We're setting up an entrepreneurial company and proving the technology. We understand that. We get that. And this slide shows the quad report. We found in the past that this is very simple for people to fill out. It consists of the bullet points you see, accomplishments, issues that you're facing at the moment, the milestones that you expect to achieve within the time frame that we've laid down for the Rocket Fund, and what next steps are essential, and often that's where we can help. We found our companies have told us in the past that filling out these reports actually helps keep them on track as well. It's short, it's simple, but it's an absolute essential to getting and fulfilling the Rocket Fund requirements. Here's the timetable for this year's program. So at the top, I've actually drawn attention to a workshop that we are co-hosting with Southern California Edison. This is an ideal opportunity for you to learn more about the different program areas that Southern California Edison is operating at the moment, to meet some of their experts that can guide you into working with them, and to understand in general how a big utility that can sometimes seem like a monolith that is hard to approach, how Southern California Edison can work with you. It's going to be a combination of an in-person workshop being held at Edison's Education Center in Irwindale, but we're also going to be hosting it online. And you'll get details from Courtney, but there's a flyer at you that we can provide if you wish to join in. Applications close at midnight on the 1st. We'll go through this initial screening that I mentioned earlier on. Semifinals will be notified as soon as possible, as soon as we've completed that. You will then be sent due diligence reports that you need to fill out that are this deeper dive into the areas that we want to cover. And at that point, by the way, you can contact me, contact somebody at the Rocket Fund. We will help you fill those out. That's still, it's not behind a wall, but where we're unavailable. We want you to present your best foot forward in applying for a Rocket Fund. Give us as much information that will make it successful. We then go into stage 2 after you submit the due diligence forms. That takes place over the next a couple of weeks where uh, the that the review committee will look at it over the next few days. And what they do then is that they score these on that day. We'll host the event on the day of between the 20th. We haven't set the date actually. Between the 20th and the 22nd. They will review their scoring and select the finalists that will go forward. In the past, what we found is that last year we had over 100 applications. We selected over 70 to go forward into the semi-final round where they submitted due diligence reports and were considered by our technology advisory committee. And out of that, we were able to select 20 that proceeded through to the finals. I want to also reassure you that your due diligence reports will be seen by at least 3 of our reviewers. And also, although we don't sign NDAs on that information, it will be kept confidential to myself and to the Technology Advisory Committee. After the finalists are notified, they will be given some time to prepare their presentation before coming to Caltech to present in person to the review panel. We typically, again, we haven't set the date. It'll be sometime between the 20th of May and the 22nd of May. But we typically make our decision on the day. Then we go into a period of approaching the finalists. Sometimes we have extra questions that we need to have answered. And once those are satisfied, then we finalize the awards. We go into the negotiation, setting up the MOU, and doing some other paperwork like getting your W-9 form. And then we actually launch payment. And the payment process within Caltech is pretty straightforward. Typically, I think it takes maybe a couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks to get the money. So for you, this means there's not much of that delayed waiting that sometimes happens with other grant programs. This slide shows some of the companies that have received awards in the past that have gone on to raise investment money. If you go to our website, the Flow Rocket Fund website at Caltech, you can find more background information to them. But what you can see on this slide is that we've actually funded a wide range of technologies. Tech is developing a material that a fire retardant material that they, as you can see from this photo, they're already begun testing and spraying certain areas to prevent fire spreading. The interesting thing about that material is that it can be spread in advance. It's largely rainfall resistant. And so we have great hopes, in fact, that they'll help us tame some of the disastrous wildfires that we've had in California. South 8 is developing a battery, a very small, high-powered battery, high-density battery that can be used on drones. Flume recently, in fact, achieved their goal of raising over $3 million in seed round funding to build and sell. They're actually selling through Amazon their water management app and device that can be attached to anybody's meter. It's a very simple thing that residence owners can apply themselves, can attach themselves. Axiom Exergy is a cooling technology actually that supermarkets are finding can help them manage their energy requirement to, of course, have huge refrigeration installations. But what Axiom is finding is that the data that they are producing, you can see a printout of it here, is proving in some cases to be even more valuable to the supermarket chains that in the past have not collected or been able to analyze this data. And then we have our PowerFlex company that in fact is a Caltech startup that was recently acquired by EDF Renewables North America. They have a very sophisticated networking capability for tracking energy use by fleets of electric vehicles actually in position. And again, analyzing that data to be able to have the commercial building really follow and use their energy distribution to the best possible efficiency. This is the flyer I mentioned earlier. There's the registration URL that you can go to if you want to join us. So we're hoping that this presentation will give you an incentive actually to consider applying to the Rocket Fund. And as I've said before, many times, is that we're there for you. We're happy to help you. We'd love to be able to introduce you to our members. They're anxious to meet you as well. And with that, I will throw it open to any questions.
Perfect. So if anyone has any questions, please chat them in right now, and we'll give it a few seconds. Any questions? Chat in. I'm not seeing anything.
Well, what I can maybe pull up that we discussed before, Courtney, is just our relationships with the tech clusters, and also I'll talk about the channel relationships and how they work.
Yes, awesome.
Yeah, so we have a close working relationship with the 4 tech clusters, including the Blue Tech Valley folk. And the way it works is that sometimes the clusters are working with companies that are a little bit, shall we say, a little bit too early for the programs that they offer. And what they do is then refer us to them, and we can provide some of the money that they need to get to just that stage where they can take advantage of the programs that the 4 tech clusters offer. So it seems to be a partnership that has worked well in the past. We typically like to support these companies. We feel that we're supporting California and its mission. The second thing is the channel relationships and how they work. We are referral partners to the Electric Power Research Institute, to the IM2 Wells Fargo program, to the Shell Game Changer program. They don't operate by throwing open applications to the general public or the entrepreneurship world. They work through referrals. So we will, through knowing our companies very well, our applicants very well, we will select those that are the best match, if you like, for the programs and refer them on when they open up for applications, which they do typically once a year. And we've had great success in referring our companies, actually. What you will get out of those relationships is typically more funding through voucher programs to work, for instance, with the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, where they will provide their technical expertise and give you access to some of their facilities to develop your technology further. I know that in the case of the IM2 Wells Fargo program, they will also, on occasion, consider your company and your product for introduction into their very wide range of properties, for instance, that they either own or oversee. So in the past, they've highlighted building technologies. I think that's still an ongoing interest and focus for them. And I regularly refer our companies to them when I think that there's going to be some innovation that could help them manage the energy cost, if you like, of those buildings a lot better.
That's perfect. We do have a question. One that says, are there any mentors given or available?
Yes, we are, in the past, we have had our mentors within our utility partners who are willing to work with you, but we are expanding that to include technical experts at the Electric Power Research Institute. I mentioned that earlier. We have a new partnership with the LB&L folk, Lawrence Berkeley National Labs. They've agreed to not only be on our technology advisory committee, but to on occasion mentor companies. And that relationship with one of the DOE labs is going to be expanded this year to the other DOE labs that we work with, including Argonne National Labs, ORNRL, and Enroll, of course. We also have our venture capital partners that are, as I mentioned earlier, are tracking some of these companies. And on occasion, they may make themselves available to work with companies to help them prepare for possible fundraising.
That's perfect. We do have a question that is coming in, and it says, this is Brian, and he is owner of Black Swan LLC Technology.
Yes.
And their company was recently awarded $100K at, or from the California Food and Ag Sweep Grant.
Mm-hmm.
They extract flue gas from power and industrial sources and feed CO or oxygen into agriculture, increasing yields and reducing water utilization. They have a patent pending, and they are wondering if they qualify.
Absolutely. That we funded a CO2 sequestration company in the past, and on the sustainability side, that's very much a focus of ours. Absolutely qualify. And I'll also mention another point. This year we set the cap of equity investment at $1 million, but we're also considering companies that have raised maybe a little bit more, maybe 2 to 3 million, as long as they can make a case for using our money in a way that's going to accelerate them forward. Often companies, even with raising that amount of money, are still, if you like, stuck in the TRL 5 to 7 stage where they're still working on their prototype. So we are prepared to consider companies like that as well.
Wonderful. Any other questions? And I see a few in here asking about the PowerPoint. And yes, I will get that out to you tomorrow. We will edit and close caption the recording, and the webinar will also be included, or the PowerPoint will also be included in that. So tomorrow. I have a question from Emilio. It says, is there access to consultants, and will the fund cover consultant needs that are new and unforeseen?
Yes, we do cover consulting services, particularly for advising you on how to scale up and manufacture your product. We often find that first-time entrepreneurs, it's something that they don't know a lot about. And we do ask that you have a plan for doing that. You may either do it yourselves or you may outsource it, but some sense of what that's going to look like. So we certainly provide consulting services for that. If during the award things change, as they do, and you need another type of consulting services, we'd be certainly pleased to talk to you about it. And if necessary, we can renegotiate the original MOU to accommodate that. The one thing I will mention that we do not pay for, and that is we don't pay for salaries. And the consulting agreement has got to be towards a targeted use of funds.
Let's see, any further questions? I'll give it a few more seconds, and if we don't have any questions, I do want to thank Stephanie again. Thank you so much. This has been great and so super informative. So I encourage all of our participants to definitely apply. And if you have any questions, like Stephanie said, she's super responsive and they are always looking to help. So any questions, please reach out to Stephanie and her team. But it looks like no more questions are coming in. So thank you again, Stephanie.
Thank you to everybody for coming. I really enjoyed it.
Us too. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.